Coach, you were just mentioning some of the things that you kind of have to wait until preseason to see.
Yes.
But starting in OTAs,
Yes.
what are some of the things that you're going to start working or have already started working on? What are you looking for?
Yeah, so just like I just said, we've started hitting more footballs on the ground to our returners because there's a really high likelihood that if somebody wants to force you to return the ball, when you kick it on the ground, you obviously can't fair catch it. So we're going to see more of that stuff potentially. And there's so many special team scenarios that you have to practice the what ifs.
Yes.
I mean, there's legitimately scenarios on our checklist over the years that we hit that haven't came up since 2008. But there we have one clip, but if it ever comes up, you have to be ready to execute. So many of the things we talk about and work on haven't came up for years. So we have to work every what if that could happen. Well, the difference with this new rule is it's happening. So when we show up and play our first preseason game, if they want to squib every kick, we have to have answers of how we're going to block up front when it's on the ground and personnel-wise have people we trust being able to field balls that are bouncing on the ground back there. So that's what we've started is more of our schemes and the actual ball handling of the returners in the event of a squib kick or deep squib. Because the ones in the air, we always work on anybody that's aligned outside the setup zones or the three deepest guys in the formation. They all have to have ball skills. So we've always worked on that, but we'll see more kicks on the ground, I believe, at times.
Now I have a question about the Pro Bowl and if you making the special teams.
Yes.
Team role as a Pro Bowler. Of course, because Jeremy Green made the Pro Bowl last year. What does it take? What do you have to do? Because I think some people are always trying to figure it out. We know Tress and what he does and the impact that he makes. But can you share a bit more about, from a player perspective, how do you make an impact?
That's a really good point because Jeremy's story that came to a crescendo last year was a result of a lot of hard work. And the bottom line is he was leading the NFL in special teams tackles most of the year. I don't know where he finished the last couple weeks, but when the voting happened, I mean, he was making plays. So when other people watched our film, they're going, this guy is making plays. We have to deal with him. We might have to devote 2 blockers to him. So his numbers were good, and I think the first thing you have to get votes is numbers. So whether it's sacks or passing yards or touchdowns, interceptions, for us, special teams tackles. So Jeremy had a lot of those. And then the other phase is where you're blocking in the return game. You're going to catch their attention with numbers, but then it's like, man, this guy's good at this too, or good at this too. And in comparison to specialists, they have numbers. You can go, well, Tress Wade net punts this, and Gross punts this, and this field goal kicker has this percentage. So Jeremy had the numbers that verify that. And then what happens is like Matthew Slater, well-documented New England, unbelievable special teams player for years. Once you get that name and you keep verifying that every year, then people, oh, that's that guy. I know that guy, or the new term, that's him, right? So if you become that, then you just draw more attention. Drawing more attention during games isn't always fun because they send their best guy and sometimes 2 of them at you. But it starts with numbers, and then you got to verify the play and keep those numbers going.
Yeah, and one more from myself. From a kick return, punt return perspective, what would you be looking for from a skill set in your kick return or punt returner?
Yeah, so always a hot topic, and the narrative outside of NFL or college or high school buildings is we want touchdowns, we want long returns. We do too, but the number one thing is you have to possess the ball. So decision makings on which one's the fair catch and clear the traffic and catch it, and actually the mechanic of getting back and getting your body in position to catch it so you're not reaching for it, and catching the balls first. Now, that's boring to watch, but when you're a team, and we all know one of the most win-lose stats is turnover ratio. That's a real thing. Well, special teams has to be a part of that, and one, by always possessing the ball, and then if we can get takeaways too, that chips in with the defense of getting takeaways. So number one, reliability, which is ball skills and basically body control, and then awareness. After that, there's a lot of people that I watch in the draft that have explosion, and if you could just go hand them the ball and tape it to them where it wouldn't come out and just let them run, they can all do that. So then that comes into play. Vision and seeing the seam and setting up blocks, that's secondary. Someone that has all of that, those are those top people. And we've had some here in the past, and the guys we have here now, we're working on getting better, and they're capable of that. But the reliability and then the explosion and run ability after that.
And so Coach, closing out OTAs, right? And some folks may have the notion, well, it's early, you know, does it even really matter? How important is this time period, although voluntary, how important is it for players and for coaches as well?
Cannon, let me tell you something. It is absolutely critical. The reason why I say that is because, number one, not only just about the X's and O's, but it's about chemistry. That's what it's about. It's about getting to know people. This is the time to do it. Because once we get in that grind, we're in that grind. So when you're out of the grind, it's a chance and opportunity where you get a half a day on Friday. You know, you say, hey, you call up you guys, hey, man, come over to the crib, pull up, man. Okay, let's get Call of Duty on, and let's just talk. Let's just get to know each other, or let's go eat. Let's go get the family together and just kind of hang out. So it's about building chemistry off the field, and then it's also building chemistry on the field in terms of how we want to do things. Not just the plays and learning the playbook, but how do we actually want to play? You know, what do we want? What are we going to get good at? What can we hang our hat on? And the time to find out is now, because this is about the trial and error in terms of being able to say, hey, coming out of this, at the end of this whole OTAs, right, these organized team activities, these are the things that we got better at. These are the things going into training camp we got to continue to improve.
So Chris Rodriguez is the newer back to the position group. And we saw him a bit during rookie camp. Have you already seen some growth in Chris from rookie camp to now at the end of OTAs? Well,
I think the biggest thing when you talk about Chris, right? First of all, the reason why we like him is because of his physicality, right? Okay, I call him the human undertaker. You know, if you watch WWE, right, or I'm sorry, WWF or whatever, the wrestling, right? You know, he just was just taking people out. And so when we watched the tape, that was the first thing, right? Contact balance off the chart. So what I've seen from him is his willingness to dive in the playbook, more so than anything else. Is diving in the playbook and trying to understand the why. It's like, why do I run this route? Why do I have to be at this depth? Because he's asking the right questions. So as long as he's doing that, not only him, but everybody, he's going to continue to improve as a player, just like we think that he will be able to help our team down the road.
And yesterday, we saw Brian Robinson was a little frustrated, and he expressed that. We saw Coach Rivera talking to him. Coach Bieniemy was asked that question in the presser earlier and talked a little bit about that as well. So can you speak a bit about Brian's passion and just how he approaches his own performance to the game?
Well, let me just tell you this about B-Rod, right? Me and B-Rod have been through some stuff, obviously, you know, from last year, and I just love everything about him. He's an old school soul, where like you can get after him, you can rip him, and he'll just go out and play. Some guys you can't do that. You got to know who you're dealing with. And so there was a couple of instances where he gets frustrated, and we're still working through some things with that, you know, in terms of just, hey, man, let's move on to the next play, okay? And being able to take criticism, right, okay? And this is part of this business. And so with him, he's a perfectionist. He wants to do it right every single time. And that's the thing that I love about him is that, hey, man, once that ball is snapped, be a runner. Go find us 4 yards. Let's line up again, find me another 4, right? And so that's the thing that's probably what he's echoing about, or that he's talking about in terms of him being frustrated on some of the things that may have happened over the last couple of days.
And overall, the position group, what is the identity that this group has. How would you describe them as a whole?
I have a thing that's in my room when you come in. I have a thing that says strength in numbers. Ever since I've been here, I've always talked about that. Let's have strength in numbers. We're only as strong as our weakest link. So I want them guys to understand I don't get caught up in the numbers. I get caught up in production. And the production meaning, does the production help us win and lose games? That's the only thing I worry about.
Coach, OTAs are complete. I know this is a voluntary time, and some may think, okay, well, it's early. It's not important. But just how important is this time for players and for coaches?
Well, I think the most important thing this year is that we have a new offense that we're working on, and working on the timing of the offense and really learning the formations and the plays. And I think that's why the OTAs is really important for us. And then really the fundamentals, usually, especially for linemen, and tight ends in the run game, is that, the way you get better is by doing something over and over and over until it becomes natural. So this is the time that you can do that. And then when they go off for the month, they know some of the things that they need to work on to keep continuing to get better. That's the only way you get better,
So I've seen you work a bit with the offensive line and with the tight ends as well. So how is that? How are you splitting your time there? Because you get really into it. So how's that balance?
It's been nice. Really what happens is the tight ends and the linemen usually work together too in the run game and also in pass protection. So it's nice that we get them together, and sometimes we do certain run drills, and then sometimes we do certain pass protection drills. So they get used to working together and a lot communicating together. And those are some of the things that we do. I kind of fit wherever they need me,
Yeah, and so I saw you working with Sadiq Charles a bit during drills. What can you share about his development and what you are enjoying and seeing out of Sadiq?
First of all, he's a great kid. He's a lot of fun to be around. We developed a nice relationship. But Sadiq is very talented, and he's a hard worker, and he wants to be good. And he has a lot of pride. So I'm excited. He's doing the right things. He's working very hard and very competitive. And then the nice thing is you get to go against really good defensive tackles. So him and Sam are really getting a great experience because they're getting to go against two of the best defensive tackles in the NFL.
And so from a tight end group perspective, what are you already seeing out of your tight end group? I know some of them are returning and others have had to deal with injuries.
Well, the nice thing is you see Logan getting back into a groove, last year he was just getting back from an injury, then he had a setback early in the season. So it's nice to see him just be happy, and enjoying himself playing. And, John is John. And then Cole, Cole was doing really well last year and he got nicked up. So he's having a good OTAs. And then Curtis did a really good job last year as a free agent, except he got nicked up right at the end of preseason. And so now with Armani, now that gives him an opportunity, and he's a very talented young man. And the nice thing about those guys is they're very hard workers. I mean, usually the offensive line is the hardest working group, but those guys are right there with the offensive line,
Right. And so with this offensive line and the tight ends, as you say, they work together, going up against this defensive line of Pro Bowlers, how much does that help the overall performance and progress of the offensive line?
Well, you've heard that thing about iron sharpens. I'm not even sure how that saying goes, but when you get really good players like that, now you're able to practice your fundamentals and your technique against skilled athletes. So now you know what you need to work on, how it fits. And really, offensive linemen are not going to be the athletes that defensive linemen are going to be. So in pass protection, angles are very important. It's being square and using your hands. And so really, it's really been good to be able to work on those things against top-notch defensive tackles and defensive ends.